You are connected to your digital devices all day, and there's a lot of great things that your digital devices can do for you. But one thing that is for certain is that if you're on it too much, it can actually hinder your relationship. So how can we deal with the inevitable problem that comes with being overstimulated, addicted, and constantly connected in this rapidly evolving digital world? Let's talk about today on the Strength of Seduction podcast. Hey, Strength of Seduction family, this is Daniel, and if you're listening to this episode, there's a good chance that you're already a Strength of Seduction customer. The reality is most people purchased our Strength of Seduction workouts back during the pandemic because they were really fun to do in the house and they looked exciting, and you wanted to build intimacy with your partner. You wanted to build connection with your partner. But over the past few years, we've realized that just doing the workouts is really fun, it's engaging, and it's interesting, but it's not really what we were trying to get at with our programming. What we intended to do is to create something that would help you to transform your life and your marriage. And it's taken us a few years to figure out what exactly that means. And we didn't do it alone. We did it by talking to you. Over the past few years, we've talked to over 20,000 couples, Black couples in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, who've gone through it all, who've seen the ups and downs of life, who've gone through all the struggles, who've actually achieved happiness. And what we learned was really shocking. We learned that there are 4 key elements that all relationships must have strong. They must have on lock in order to make that relationship thrive. And we took those 4 elements and we designed a program around those elements to help support Black couples in a way we've just never seen done before. And what we came up with was called Love and Legacy. And it's the first and only program in the world created from speaking privately with thousands of couples just like us about the biggest challenges in our life and relationship. And it's actually a proven system designed to help Black couples upgrade our life and our marriage. Now, this is not open to the public yet. If you're listening to this, like I said, you're most likely already a member of our community. And that's why we'd like to tell you about it first. You can apply and you can learn more at strengthofseduction.com/legacy. This is a private page. And I look forward to hearing from you because the reality is there isn't a lot of talk about what makes our marriages work, what makes our marriages thrive. What I've seen when I'm doing my research is that there's still a big stereotype that our marriages don't last, they don't work, that they're non-existent. And that's certainly not the case. In the Love and Legacy community, we have members who've been married for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're still going strong. And yet they're still interested in learning more and digging deeper and showing up better as partners and individuals. So if that's you, go ahead and check us out, strengthofseduction.com/legacy to learn more about this new program that we're launching. And enjoy today's episode. This is the Strength of Seduction podcast, the #1 resource for Black couples who want to build intimacy, love, and connection in their relationship. I'm your host, Daniel DiPiazza. My friends, welcome back to the Strength of Seduction podcast, the #1 resource for Black couples who want to build love, intimacy, and connection in their marriage. I'm your host, Daniel DiPiazza. If you're new here and you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for updates. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform like Apple or Spotify, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. Every review counts, and we really appreciate it. We have an incredible episode for you today about the effect of technology on your marriage. And it's very funny that you're listening to this on your podcast platform. You have your earphones plugged in. So it is ironic that I'm giving you this information via the technology that could sometimes get in the way of your marriage. But we're going to talk about how technology can help you, how technology can hurt you in your relationship, and how we can resolve those issues. So before we dive in today, I want to remind you that there's something very special going on behind the scenes here at Strength of Seduction. And we're working with a very particular group of couples. We're working with Black couples who want to kill the idea of divorce forever. We're working with Black couples who want to grow mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually together through a program called Love and Legacy. This is our breakthrough coaching platform specifically designed for Black married couples who are ready to kill the idea of divorce, who are ready to build stronger communication, who are ready to build better health together, deeper, more sexual intimacy, I could say, and of course, create more money for their family. Now, if that is you, I encourage you to learn more about what we're doing at Love and Legacy. You can go to strengthofseduction.com/apply to learn more about this program. This is an exclusive program that is not open to the public. It's only open to the members of the Strength of Seduction community. So I encourage you, if you're someone out there, if you're a couple out there who knows that they want to take their relationship to the next level, who's maybe tried therapy or other types of counseling in the past and it just hasn't stuck, this is something that is different than anything else that's out there, and it's made specifically for us by us. So check it out. strengthofseduction.com/apply is where you go to learn more. Now, let's get into today's episode. Today is a very important episode because we're all dealing with some form of digital addiction. I think that's certainly true. Now, me, I'm what you call an elder millennial. I'm working my way towards 40. And for some people listening to this, that might seem very young, but the reality is all of us are on our digital devices, some more than others. And our phone is now our supercomputer in our pocket. It's now our constant companion. I know for me, if I leave the house without my phone, to a certain extent, I feel naked. I feel lost. In fact, I'd rather be out of the house without my wallet than without my phone. And that's very telling. And there are so many good things that have come from this technological boom. I can remember life before the internet. And I think my generation is the last generation to have remembered life before the internet. And there was a certain peace to that world. There was a certain pace to that world that was a lot slower than the pace we experience now. And some ways I'm nostalgic for that, but in another very real way, I wouldn't trade that world for the world we have today in terms of the internet has brought us so much information, brought us so much connection, brought us so much opportunity. And you're listening to this through a streaming internet connection, and you're doing it because you want to support your marriage. And of course, that's very helpful to you. So although I do get nostalgic about the world before digital connection was everything, I don't necessarily want to go back. However, I can understand the fact that there is a very real impact that technology has on all of our relationships. And that's all of our relationships, full stop, but especially our marriage, just because it's so pervasive in our daily lives. And so really, I feel that technology there's a dual edge here. It's a double-edged sword. The first piece about this that I think is worthy of talking about is just the idea that we're constantly connected, and in a way, it erodes the veil of privacy. Before the internet was in your pocket, before everyone was on Wi-Fi with a smartphone, there was a certain barrier around our personal lives that stayed just that. It stayed between us and our mind, stayed confined within the walls of our brain or with the conversations that we were having privately in our personal lives. And now, so much of our personal lives is public. Even if you look at Facebook, you can have your personal Facebook profile, but of course that personal profile is public. And we put so much of our information online now, I think sometimes we forget how much of us is actually out there. And oftentimes this can cause problems in a relationship in two different ways. The first is and I've had this in my relationship, in a past part of my career, I was a very well-known influencer, you could say, a very well-known personality in the world of business, in the world of entrepreneurship. And I developed that following because I shared a lot. And it wasn't mostly about my relationship at all. It was just about my entire life. But of course, when you're in a decade plus long relationship, you're going to share stuff online that relates to that other person. And sometimes your partner doesn't want that information out there. So you might have two differing personalities where one person is very open to sharing online and the other person is not open to sharing online, and that can cause issues. That's just the function of two different personalities. But because of the technology allowing us to be able to communicate and broadcast that information, it can cause issues within the relationship. Now, another side of that equation in terms of constant connection and the juxtaposition of privacy is that now there's the opportunity for partners to constantly check up on each other. There's the opportunity for partners to be looking at what their partner is posting online, thinking about how that relates to their relationship. There are sometimes depending on, look, if you've been married for a long time, this might not be an issue, but especially if you're new in your relationship, you might be looking for people posting subliminal things about you or looking for who is leaving comments or likes or viewing your partner's profile, what is going on in your partner's DMs or in their messages. And this can cause trust issues. It can cause anxiety. And sometimes those things could be warranted, but other times it's It's just a function of the fact that social media is exposing us. It's exposing all of us, and it can cause issues. And another one of the big issues that comes with just technology being at the forefront of all of our lives now is that it warps our opinion of how relationships should be. It creates unrealistic expectations about relationships. It can stir up jealousy and insecurity where there's really no reason for it. Now, there have been quite a few studies that show the negative effect that social media has on mental health, especially with regard to young women and body image, but I think just in general about relationships. Let's put it like this. Most people aren't posting the garbage that's happening in their relationship. They're only posting their wins. They're only posting their vacation photos that you don't know were from 3 years ago. They're only posting them smiling for the most part. So it creates this unrealistic expectation, perhaps in your own relationship, of how things should look and feel. Or if you follow a lot of celebrities online and they're posting about their lives, their relationships, their material possessions, the things that they have, the things that they're doing, it can create undue stress in your life when you're comparing it to your life, your day-to-day, your material possessions, your relationship. And it's just simply not reality. Social media, especially Instagram, there are different uses of each platform. I think that certain platforms tend to be more fake than others. I think Instagram is one of the fakest platforms. I think that Facebook can be one of the most toxic platforms. I think that TikTok can be one of the most addictive platforms. I think that I have good things to say about YouTube in general, but overall, all of them have different ways in which they can draw our attention, distort our reality, and create jealousy and insecurity for others within our relationship and within ourselves when it doesn't need to be that way. And so I think the first step is just acknowledging that these are issues that come up, not just because there's an actual issue within the relationship, which sometimes there is, but just because of the function of how the technology and how the platforms work. And the more that we're on them, the more that we feed into them. They are pendulums that absorb our energy and consume it. And so that's the kind of the negative side, the dark side of technology and how it can affect relationships. There's also just the time suck that comes into it. If you're constantly on your devices, that necessarily is time when you're not connecting with each other. And I'm guilty of this. I'm not saying that I have defeated this. I'm acknowledging it. There are times where Sarah and I will be watching a movie and we're both on the phone. So we're looking at two small screens while a big screen is playing. That seems like 3 distractions to me. And it's just funny to notice that. And sometimes I'll call it out and be like, you see what's happening right now? It's actually hilarious, but it's not actually healthy. Or just, have you ever had that time before you go to bed and you guys are both on your phones and then you just get tired of looking at your phone, put down the phone and go to bed? That could have been intimate time. That could have been connection time. Or you just find that you are escaping into the technology rather than dealing with the issues that are coming up in the relationship. These are all examples where technology is acting as a barrier. We spend so much of our time in front of screens during the day, and many of us need them for work. So there is a legitimate reason to be on them, but oftentimes we use them as distractions from the things that actually need to get accomplished. And that's when it becomes a barrier. Now, there are positive uses of technology. Obviously, they're great connection tools. They're great, especially if you're in a long distance period of your relationship. You want to be able to have that FaceTime and that video chat. It's great for planning things as well. If you have shared calendars and planning things to sync your schedules up. I guess when I'm talking about technology, it's not just about social media. It's the smartphone in general, and it's the apps and applications that we can use. There are even things like, there are even dating apps. Most people listening to this are married, so it's not really the main thing. But to be fair, I met my wife on a dating app. I met her on OkCupid back before they even had mobile apps. This is back in 2009, 2010. And I'm thankful to that app. So I'm not mad at it, okay? But the reality is, I believe that in general, within a relationship, there are more downsides than upsides to technology. I think on a societal level, still technology has created a net positive effect. Even though there are so many negatives, I think there's a net positive. But I think within a romantic relationship, probably it's a net negative, just because of all the things I initially named here. Now, what are some ways where we can set boundaries for this? Obviously, the first thing, it's easier said than done, is creating tech-free times. And this could be a day of the week, so it could be like a tech-free Sunday. It could be during specific activities. For instance, going out to the park, going to the forest, going to the beach, going swimming, doing things where you physically can't have the phone with you, where you're forced to not be on it, is like a forced relaxation time. And this can just ensure that you're going to have quality time together, even setting tech-free zones in the house. So no TV in the bedroom. One thing you can do, which I haven't done yet, but I think is a great idea, is to just put a regular old alarm clock back in the bedroom and put the phones outside of the bedroom so that when you go into the bedroom for the night, you literally can't be scrolling on social media. And we all use our phones mostly for our alarm to wake up in the morning, if that's how you wake up. But whatever happened to that good old regular alarm clock? Charge the phone in the family room, downstairs or far away from you, and force yourself to have a tech-free bedroom. Now, that's one thing we have been successful with, is not having a TV in the bedroom, which I think is a really great idea, because you just don't need that screen in there. It's like we already have a screen in the house, and we actually only have one TV in the house, which I don't know if that's, we should be proud of that or whatever, but my mom has, she must have 4 TVs in the house. I'm like, why do you need so many TVs? I think she has at least 3, and she doesn't need 3. Why? And so sometimes it's just limiting the number of screens you have in the house and limiting where the screens can be and limiting the times you can use it. And then also just creating boundaries around social media rules in general, like thinking about, okay, what is my partner comfortable with me sharing online? So for instance, in my case, having been a well-known person in my space, looking back on the lessons I learned, I wouldn't have shared maybe so much detail about my relationship. I would have toned it down. I would have checked and cleared with some things first. Even, and maybe this is a common thing with a lot of husbands and wives, but clearing when you're going to share a picture of someone online. Because for you, if you're someone who's an extrovert, someone who likes sharing, someone who finds it fun or gets rewarded for it, there is a benefit to sharing your personal life sometimes, or you don't see it as a big deal. But if you're with a partner who sees it as a big deal, who doesn't want to be exposed, you have to respect that as well. That's how they want to live their lives. And you guys have joined forces in life. You guys have intertwined souls. So you have to be respectful of what they want too, because if you're in the picture, so are they. And so you honestly have to defer to the person who was more uncomfortable, simply because they're the one with a narrower scope of needs. And so I think that's really important to remember. And then also, just for men and women, thinking about how you're interacting with the opposite sex on social media is a big thing. Thinking about how you're liking, commenting, sharing, adding people, friending, and showing up online is important. Even if you don't think that there's anything wrong that's going on, think about how your partner would perceive it and think about how other people would perceive it. And take yourself outside of your own shoes and try to have some perspective on the situation. And also think, if this shoe were on the opposite foot, would I appreciate that? And again, even if you don't see it as something that is personally wrong for you against your code, because that's the way that you want to interact, you have to defer to the person who has the bigger problem with it. This is a question or a conversation we can have at a later date. But in general, on social media, if one person is less comfortable with you sharing than another person, the person who is more outgoing, more gregarious, more comfortable has to defer to the person who's less, because ultimately that's where the problem is going to arise. And you have to, I think, sometimes take some good advice. Nothing really great comes of sharing too much personal information online. There's a lot of reasons why this is the case. Even if we look at reality shows, how many of the reality shows where couples bear their entire relationship on a show actually survive? How many of those relationships actually do well? I'll let you take a guess. Not that many of them. You could just see the results of them. They just don't do well. And it's because too much excessive attention on any one person's relationship creates a vector of attack for that relationship. The more you put it out there, the more energy and people and things can come into that space. And you want to keep your relationship clean and clear and pure. And you can only do that if there's a certain level of anonymity to it. You can look in the celebrity world to see that's the case. And so a couple things to think as we close this out. One of the big things I see with couples, especially in our programs, is that overuse of technology can lead to neglect in your relationship. And that's something that is easily addressable if you're aware of it. And so even just looking at the amount of screen time you're spending on your phone and thinking, man, if I was even spending more of this with my partner, that would be wisely invested time into my relationship. And then think about how when you're communicating, especially digitally, how sometimes you can misinterpret things. So this isn't just on social media. You might be communicating with your spouse on social media, but even if you're just talking technology in general, think about how conversations will come across differently over a text message than they might over an in-person conversation or even over a voice note or a video. Think about how text can be misinterpreted because it seems to be flatter. It seems to be colder and a little bit harsher sometimes. Think about just the difference in someone saying no with a smiley face versus no with a period at the end. One just seems a lot harsher than the other, even though it's the same actual words. So sometimes miscommunication can happen just from the medium that you're sharing the information on. So take these things into consideration and use technology to your benefit, but don't overuse it, especially at the detriment to your relationship. And use your technology to communicate as clearly as possible. And when you can, have important conversations with your partner in person. Don't rely on digital devices as a crutch because you're too afraid to have the conversations that need to be had. Whether that means that you're avoiding the conversations by just absorbing yourself in digital content and digital devices, or whether you're having the communication, but it's not in a real, tangible, organic way. Put down the phone and have the conversation. Step away from the screen and have the conversation. When you're together, get off the phone. And it's easier said than done. And I'm certainly not the expert at this, but these are things I've found in my relationship, and they're things I've seen from our couples within our Love and Legacy program and our other programs for couples. So that is my take on technology and how it can impact your relationship. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have anything to add to this, I would love to hear from you. You can email me at daniel@strengthofseduction.com. That is it for the Strength of Seduction podcast today, my friends. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you love listening to us on, and leave a review on Apple or Spotify. Every review counts. And of course, if you want to learn more about our transformational coaching program for Black married couples who want to kill the idea of divorce, who want to grow together spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, and who want to do it all with love, passion, and fun, of course, go to strengthofseduction.com/apply to learn more about Love and Legacy, our signature coaching program for Black married couples. Now, as I always say, love fiercely, communicate openly, and always find your way back to each other. This is Daniel. I'll catch you next time on the Strength of Seduction podcast. Peace.